Well, we all woke up this morning to some incredible news. Russia has released American journalist Evan Gershkovich in a prisoner swap. The Wall Street Journal's Moscow correspondent had spent over a year behind bars on trumped-up espionage charges. He, along with 3 other Americans, have now arrived home. Someone who unfortunately has first-hand experience with this is Kylie Moore Gilbert, and she joins me now. Kylie, thank you so much for your time. I know talking about this is reliving your trauma, essentially, so we're very grateful. You spent 804 days in an Iranian prison before a very similar prisoner swap saw you freed. How do you think Evan and the others would be feeling right now?
Gosh, it's a really amazing moment. For me, it was when I passed out of Iranian airspace into a neutral zone where I could finally breathe a sigh of relief and say I'm out of their clutches at last. It's a really surreal moment, and I imagine that Evan and Alisu and Paul Whelan and all of the other political dissidents and wrongfully detained people will be feeling much the same. It's a lot to take in, so there's a lot of sort of numbness and confusion and just sort of staring about wide-eyed as things happen to you. But again, that moment that we're seeing right now of reuniting with family, following landing back on the soil of your home country is really, really special, and it's one that I'll never forget for the rest of my life too.
Does it make you feel emotionally in a happy way? Is it also really hard for you to revisit that part of your life? What are your emotions like?
Makes me feel happy. I'm really, really pleased that everyone is finally free. There was a lot of concern that somebody might be left behind again, particularly Paul Whelan, given he'd been left behind in 2 previous deals that the US concluded with Russia. So I was really pleasantly surprised and over the moon to see not only Evan Gershkovich, but Alisu Komasheva, Paul Whelan, and also Vladimir Kara-Murza, who, you know, is a very prominent dissident, be released too. It's really wonderful news and nothing but great feelings from my end.
I'm certain you don't go back to normality after such a traumatic experience. How hard is it and will it be for them to settle back into normality, if that's possible at all?
It's a journey and you have your ups and downs for sure. You know, it, I think, depends on how much time you've spent there and the kind of experience you've had in custody. A Russian gulag or labor camp is not fun by any means. And, you know, Paul Whelan, I think, spent 5.5 years in one. So I imagine it would be more difficult for him to readjust than Alisu or Evan, who are the 2 journalists who spent just over a year, I think, in Russian custody. But everybody has their own challenges, and it's certainly not an easy thing. But I do think that with love and support and, you know, surrounding yourself with people who care about you and want to help you, it's certainly possible to rehabilitate and get on with your life.
Kylie, I can't have you on and not also ask you about the situation in the Middle East after the assassination of the Hamas leader in Iran. You wrote a brilliant piece, congratulations on it, in Foreign Policy magazine, saying that it looked like an inside job and it points to public dissatisfaction with the regime in Iran. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that this brutal authoritarian regime in Iran has lost all popular legitimacy. We saw that in 2022 with the Mahsa Amini Woman Life Freedom Movement, where you saw hundreds of thousands of people take to the streets protesting all over the country, calling for an end to this regime. And that was brutally suppressed. 500 odd people were killed, tens of thousands imprisoned, women raped in prison en masse as a punishment, really horrific things. And you know, the very real national security threats internally that have emerged in Iran are a direct result of that. We have a situation in Iran today where the general populace is willing to actively work with Iran's enemies against their own government because they want to bring down this regime. And all of the facts that have emerged from the Ismail Haniyeh killing, and you know there haven't been too many of them since its occurrence 48 hours ago or so, point to the fact that it was an inside job. Indeed, the New York Times today showed that it was almost certainly a bomb that was placed in his apartment 2 months earlier. Now, this was an apartment guarded by the Revolutionary Guard Corps under extreme security in a faction, you know, of the city of Tehran that was under heavy guard. And obviously that's not a Mossad agent infiltrating, from elsewhere in the region, coming into Iran and putting it there. That's an inside job. So I think it's highly embarrassing for this regime, and it's just yet another example of the gross deficiencies in their internal security, and it's of their own making.
You are such a powerful voice in this space, and we thank you so much for sharing it with us here on air. And Kylie Moore Gilbert, thank you so much for your time.